Yeah, I mean, obviously coming off a disappointing performance, regardless of win or loss, just one of those games that unfortunately every team has, and no reason for it other than it's just a bad day at the office. And we will reconvene for practice today after not practicing yesterday, and we'll be excited about going out there and competing to put ourselves in a place to play as well as we can against Georgetown.
Dave, you can go ahead and get us started, and then next up will be Colin.
Hey, Frank, thanks for doing this. You mentioned the bad day at the office, and a lot of teams had these in the early season. After a game like that, where just didn't seem like anything goes right, what is your practice plan for the next day? Do you just go and try to have a normal thing, or you're trying to concentrate on something specific? Just what do you do going forward after a loss like that?
Communicate. I mean, it's not an X and O problem. It's we didn't play up to the personality of our team, up to the personality that we've created by how consistent we've been on how we've prepared and played the first 6 games of the year. Dave, I said this after the game the other day. I get the fact that everyone around here follows football. I do too. They play 12 games. It's a little easier to control the consistency than you play with when you only play 12 times a year. When you play 31 times a year and you're dealing with people that are between the ages of 18 and 22 years of age, you're going to have bad days. Sometimes you have individuals that have bad days. Sometimes you have coaches that have bad days. Sometimes you have a collective effort that have bad days. Well, that's unfortunately for us. The other day against Coastal, we had a collective bad day. And I think it's Fran Fraschilla who said this a long time ago, and I totally agreed with him when he said it. There's going to be 5 games a year where you don't play any good. There's going to be 5 games a year where you play probably over your head. And then the other 20 games kind of determine who your team is. And I think that's a pretty accurate statement coming from a guy that coached for a long, long time.
Frank, I guess I got 2 for you. With Josh's flagrant at the end of that game, is he facing any suspension time automatic from that? And outside of that, what have you seen from your bigs over the course of these last couple games, and what needs to change to get more production out of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's we weren't any good. I mean, our bigs have not been as consistent as I'd like for them to be. Big reason for that is we're very inexperienced. And I knew going into the year that there's a lot of potential there, but at the same time, there's a lot of inexperience there. And so it was going to take a little bit of time with those guys. So I'm not going to change my opinion on the people that we have representing our team. We got to continue to teach, continue to challenge, continue to encourage, and continue to be patient with their growth. And I get the fact that nobody likes to lose. I think Nick Saban at his press conference the other day said it best. No one hates losing more than the players. I mean, for anyone, coaches, fans, anyone that ever thinks that losing bothers us more than the players, they're out of their minds. And players got pride, and as coaches, it's our job to give them direction, instill trust in them, not be an emotional train wreck of judging them based on their last performance and hugging them after a good day and telling them how much you dislike them after a bad day. That's not the way the world works. That's not the way good teams are operated. We communicate, we demand, we challenge, and we continue to encourage and believe in the people that stand by us every single day. And those guys will be fine. The objective is for us to be the best basketball team that we can be in March. And that's always been my objective, and that will continue to be my objective this year.
Michael?
Frank, kind of along those same lines, I guess you guys are roughly through non-conference play, halfway through non-conference play at this point. And just kind of curious, what are kind of some of the things that you hope to, I guess, on your checklist that you hope to see out of the team during this portion of the year? And kind of where are these guys in that journey? What do you hope to see from your teams during this time of year?
Yeah, we've played 7 games. 6 of those opponents have been pretty darn good opponents. And 3 of those games have been away from home. And for a team that's so many first-year players who lost its most experienced player for basically 3 weeks with a pulled hamstring, that had its leading returning scorer suspended for the first 5 games, I think these guys have done really darn well. And I think we've been a lot more consistent than I thought we'd be this early in the year. That's why I'm not going to overreact to a bad performance our last time out, Michael. We're a work in progress, and anyone that tells you differently is not telling you the truth. We're all trying to understand each other. We're all going through this for the first time, for the most part, together, and that takes time to figure out. And when you consider that we've played 3 of our 7 games away from home, we've played really good opponents, and we're 5-2. I'd like to be 7-0, but we're not. We're 5-2. I think we had a pretty good month in November. Pretty good month in November, and we just have to get back at it today and get back to the personality that we fought real hard to create for better part of the last 3 months.
Rick?
Hey, Frank, after the game Wednesday night, you said that you could tell during the walkthrough that the team was in for a long night. As you prepare for Georgetown, what are some of the indicators you're going to be looking for in practice? And what are some of the really your demands that you're really going to press leading up to your next game?
Yeah, I mean, Rick, that's why I was able to identify at the shoot around for the Coastal game that we were not in a right place mentally. It's because we've done this together for the last 3 months. We've played 6 games together. I'm starting to get a pulse for our team. I know what we're pretty good at. I know how connected these guys have been up to that moment. And then that day, there was a disconnect with what we were doing. And don't ask me why. I can probably give you 37 different reasons why I think it was there, but I'm not going to harp on those things. We're going to communicate today. With all these rules that exist with the NCAA, I'm not allowed to meet with the team yesterday because it was our day off. So we'll do all that communicate and all that stuff today, and we'll continue to push forward and be positive and demanding and encouraging and just demand that we on Sunday.
We'll go Mike, Uva, and then back to Dave.
Don't get cut off here. My Wi-Fi is awful right now. What is one thing in particular, though? I know you talked about how you're pleased with how this team has been able to pick up defensively. I know from last night you're talking about how maybe they're fouling just a little bit more, and you kind of explained that. But outside of that, what have you been pleased with how this group has been able to respond so quickly in terms of being able to be new, so many new faces, and being able to pick up what you're teaching them?
Yeah, I think defensively we've created an identity for our team early in the year. Obviously, we didn't play with it against Coastal, but I know what we do every day in practice, and I know how we've played the first 6 games and before Coastal, and that to me tells me a lot about our team is the commitment to the defensive identity, because that's everyone wants to teach offense. Offense is a representation of individual talent. Defense is something that you have to sacrifice. You have to give and create a unity to play well team defense, and that's something that this team has fought to create, and that's That's something that I'm really happy with, and we're going to continue to hang our hat on. And then offensively, I think we've played pretty well. We've had difficult spurts in different games. We had a bad spurt against Princeton in the middle section of the first half when it was 19-9, and then we had a really bad offensive spot. We obviously against UAB, we're playing real well on offense, and then we hit a bad spot there in the second half. And those things are going to happen early in the year as we try to connect the talent, the individual talent, to understand how to play in the structure, so we can maximize each individual talent offensively. But that's the way I'm perceiving it. That's the way I view things. Is the unity of our team comes from our defensive personality, and that's something that we have shown to be pretty good at early in the year.
Dave?
Frank, with Josh Gray the other night, will he face any further disciplinary action for that flagrant foul?
Yeah, I apologize. Somebody else asked me that. No one has said anything to me about it. So I'm on my way in here now. So I can't answer that right now. I don't have any new information. I know they threw a ball at his head and he threw a ball back at the other guy's head. So if I would think if one guy's suspended, so should the other guy. But I'll let the people make those decisions.
Also, do you have any update on Jermaine? I know you guys haven't practiced since, but hearing anything from the docs or medics or him about his situation?
This morning he's gotten better every single day. Again this morning. Today he's going to lift with lower body, which is a good sign, and he's going to do some things in practice. And based on how he responds to the things that he does in practice today, will determine how much added workload we can give him tomorrow. And if he can put in more time tomorrow, then it determines whether or not he can go on Sunday. Obviously, if Sunday was a later game, it'd give us more time to get treatment and heal during the course of the day, but it's not. So we'll deal with that, basically for the next 48 hours, on the hour, every hour, and see what happens.
Back to Michael.
What have you seen from Georgetown at this point? What can we expect to see on Sunday, and what's kind of the challenge of facing that team?
Yeah, Michael, it's they typical Patrick Ewing, kind of aggressive. When I mean Patrick Ewing, I'm talking about the Georgetown brand. Dead ball, full court press. They get after you defensively. They switch a lot defensively, which is kind of what everyone's going to now. A lot of switching, but very physical, very aggressive. Get on the glass, attack the rim. They've got a point guard that's pretty darn good. They got 2 6'6" wings that kind of come at you off the bounce. And then they've got a young man from here in town, Caden Rice, unbelievable young man, unbelievable family, that can really, really shoot the basketball. And then they've got 3 guys that they play at center. And they just kind of, if you think about the old John Thompson teams where they used to roll out the centers one after the other and just try to beat you up at the rim, that's what you're going to get with Patrick Ewing and the Georgetown Hoyas.
I don't see any more hands raised. Frank, we did have a question from one of the reporters with Georgetown. They're doing their media availability right now as well. But just his question was, have you met Patrick Ewing in the past? Are you, what are your thoughts about playing Georgetown, which you pretty much just answered, but just have you met Patrick Ewing and thoughts about his team?
Yeah, I mean, I met Patrick Ewing. He was in the NBA and we were in the Bahamas, and he was vacationing, and we had a staff retreat down at the Atlantis, and I was at K-State, I want to say, and we met there. I'd never met him. I'm a huge Patrick Ewing fan. And then when he got into college basketball, he hired Louis Orr, and Louis's been a friend for a long time. And then I've gotten to spend time with Patrick, and I mean, one of my favorite basketball players of all time. I was a huge Georgetown fan when he was there in the '80s, and huge fan. I'd never liked the Knicks, but I started rooting for the Knicks because of him and Pat Riley, and Xavier McDaniel and Anthony Mason and that crew, John Starks, and I'm privileged to say that anytime we're in the same place, Patrick and I always spend a couple minutes together. It's just it's another indication of just how lucky a life I've lived, that because of basketball I can sit down with Patrick and laugh and joke and have great conversations. I've got a lot of respect for him, a lot of respect for Georgetown as a program, and super excited that in our talks he was willing to do this home and home with us and give us an opportunity to compete against a program like Georgetown.